On today's episode, we're talking once in a lifetime experiences and the attributes you can apply to make any game day memorable for your fans.
From EngageMint, this is Flip the Switch.
Katie, what's cracking? It's Super Bowl week, baby. Let's go.
It is Super Bowl week. You've got your hometown team versus the actual hometown team.
Are we calling Cincinnati my hometown team? I mean, it's more like the Saints are my hometown team. But I live here now, so I guess
You live
whatever.
here now, so that's why we're calling it your hometown team.
All right, fair enough. So, yeah, on that note, yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming you're rooting for the Bengals.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I'll be wearing
Okay.
I'll be wearing some Cincinnati gear. I mean, it has been really cool, and I think it is really cool. Like whenever one of these like smaller Midwest cities, like a Detroit or Minneapolis, and not that they're like smaller, but compared to LA, they are.
Right.
Whenever one of these teams get in, it just takes over. The mania just takes over the city, and it's really cool to be a part of, especially because the Bengals have been so bad for so long. So it's Super Bowl will be a really cool experience, a once in a lifetime experience for a lot of the Cincinnati Bengal fans that are going there, and that's what we're talking about today.
I can imagine. I'm excited to jump into this.
All right. So let's start us off. You had the idea, you're like, hey, let's talk about once in a lifetime experiences at sporting events and kind of highlight some different aspects of things to hopefully trigger some ideas for people. Obviously, you and I have been to a bunch of different venues across the country, a bunch of different experiences. So let's kick it over to you. I mean, where do you want to start us?
When we think about major events, I always go to my once in a lifetime experience of going to the 2019 World Series. I grew up a diehard Yankee fan, but I kind of adopted the Nationals living in Virginia, followed Ryan Zimmerman and Sean Doolittle, who played at the University of Virginia. So I had an opportunity to go, came across a ticket, went to game 4. And the experience of being there, that team had been 19-34 at one point, thought they were almost mathematically eliminated before the All-Star break, turned it around, made the postseason. And so the whole attitude and atmosphere was, we're just happy to be here. We're lucky to be here. We're going to soak in every aspect of this experience that we can. And that just radiated from the fans and all the staff that were working that game. I got there early, took a lap around the stadium just to kind of take it all in. And the number of times that I heard people that were trying to get closer to the field to take a photo, and the ushers are saying, "Oh, can I take that photo for you?" They weren't policing their sections. "No, you can't come in here because you don't have a ticket." It was, how can I help capture this moment for you and make sure mom and dad and the whole family actually get to be in this photo? And it just continued from there. When you went to the concession stands, as the person greeted you, it was, "Welcome to the World Series. What can I get you today?" And that really just kind of changed my entire thought process on the in-game experience. I was working in fan experience at the time, but there's so much more to it than a promotion that you do on the field to entertain the fans. It's the holistic atmosphere that you could have around an experience.
Yeah, I mean, so many good points that you brought up. I mean, I love the points about the ushers taking the pictures and really treating it like that once in a lifetime experience. I mean, that's something that you and I do when we're working with different college athletic departments or pro teams on customer service training. Sometimes when a fan is coming to the game, that is a once in a lifetime experience for them. If it's a regular season game, that might be the only time they
Right.
ever come to the venue. And they're looking for that. And so how do you train your people to have that kind of approach where they're walking up and proactively offering to take that picture for the fan? And they're treating it like it could be a once in a lifetime experience. So that was like, I mean, that my brain obviously gravitated towards there from things that
Right.
you said. But I mean, they did I feel like they did some other things really well that I've heard you talk about this with me, like even from like printed commemorative tickets, like there were some like process and like amenity things that they did that were really cool to commemorate this once in a lifetime experience, right?
Yes. Major League Baseball had been one of the early adopters to digital tickets and the mobile tickets. And so you could still go to the box office and have your exact seat location. I think it was a couple dollar contribution that went to a charity. But you could have your exact seat location printed on a ticket. And so for those fans who love that collectible, they love the tangible item of having the ticket as their souvenir from the game, thought that was really great to be able to have that to take away and have that memento from the game. And it was just everything around it. I mean, as you were coming up from the Metro sponsored signs that they were giving out to all the fans and to have during the game. So it was continue the fight on one side. They had do on the back, which was the cheer for Sean Doolittle. So obviously that resonated with me since he was one of the guys I was following. But just the whole atmosphere around it was what little tiny things can we have as a memento from this for fans to take away?
A tangible memory, we would call it at Disney.
Yes.
Also known as a souvenir that you pay out the butt for. But I mean, I guess should I go into start sharing mine? I mean, what do you want to take this? Let's do
Absolutely.
that.
Share some
Let's
of
do that.
yours.
All right. So some of my like once in a lifetime experiences. Um, for me, I mean, I think if you got an opportunity to ever go to a stadium or an arena opening, they're always just so special. The atmosphere in there, it's a really interesting, it's really interesting dynamic. So like for me, Orlando City home open, which is the first MLS team in Orlando, second pro team outside of the Magic there was so much buzz. They filled the stadium, and it was incredible. Now, whenever you go to a new venue, it is so to my point. It's like really interesting because fans are really hyped, but like two of the bathrooms aren't working, right? Like the
Right.
TVs are down because like you haven't finished fully setting it up a lot of times. And you're always half open, but fans are willing to forgive you. And so like there's like this cool grace period where fans know that things aren't going to be right, and like that's okay. Um, and obviously that doesn't last throughout the course of the season, and that shiny penny wears off, and fans will be quick to raise their level of expectation. But during that home opener, the buzz was just so cool, and we were working that. I was working that event the first half. Like I mean, we were troubleshooting guest service problems. We had trained all their staff and like built a bunch of processes for around customer service behind the scenes for that game.
Right.
So we were troubleshooting, but I was also a season ticket holder. So like once halftime hit, I was like, all right, guys. And I said to my team, I was like, all right, y'all got this going forward. Like I got to go jump into my seats. I want to go experience this. I've been a season ticket holder since before they were in the new venue. Um, and it was just such a cool experience. So that definitely for me was one of my like once in a lifetime experiences.
I don't know if you feel this way given the number of events you've gone to, but can you even just sit back and enjoy a game anymore? Or are you always paying attention to everything that's going on?
I mean, yeah, we're all. I think any of us that work in this industry, like all of us, are constantly like looking at. Oh, well, let me go explore the concourse and see what sponsor activations are there. Like, let me see what type of like mapping they've got for like. Can I tell where the gluten free area is? Like, I mean, all of us. I mean, at least I'm that way. Um, I'm like notorious for taking pictures in the bathroom because I want to see how cleanly it is, and like fans look at me weird. But
I
anyway,
would imagine
not
that would be a weird one.
maybe that's when I should put my phone away. But yeah, so to that point, I mean, that's why that Orlando City home open was so special. There have been a couple other times where I've like been able to really be a fan recently, like going to a Notre Dame game, going back as an alum after they've done that Campus Crossroads whole renovation. I mean, what they've done from a marrying modern enhancements and capturing and paying homage to the traditions in that venue is incredible. I mean, for forever, we like our fans had so much pushback that like, oh, we can't have a stadium or we can't have a stadium jumbotron because that wouldn't be traditional. And it's like, guys, I missed the touchdown because I went to the bathroom and I can't see it because we don't have Wi-Fi. That's garbage. Like screw tradition. I want
Right.
to see I want to see the touchdown. So there's been a lot
Can
of
only hold on to that tradition for so long.
for sure when the tradition starts to get in the way of fans actually enjoying the game, like that's when it's time to go, right? Like,
Right.
oh, if some, I don't think nobody ever says, oh, it's tradition to have the troughs in the men's bathroom.
No.
Nobody ever says that, right? So, and that's a good reason because it's a bad customer experience. But I think if you're a traditional program, like going to look, I mean, Notre Dame is like, to me, they've done it the best in terms of just like taking those wooden oak benches that always used to break that we would sit on that people threw up a fit when they got rid of them. You know, they turned them into signs throughout the concourse. And so like they really did a good job of paying homage to the old traditions that are there, but completely upgrading the customer experience.
That's awesome. And to me, I kind of compare that to Yankee Stadium. I mean, I've been to a bunch of games in old Yankee Stadium. As run down as it was, like I love the charm of being in the house that Ruth built. And there's some of those things that in the new place you're never going to be able to have. You're never going to be able to say, I saw Babe Ruth play right there. I never saw, I saw Roger Maris play right there. Some of the older fans that have been lifelong Yankee fans. And just adding, the decorative trellis doesn't make it as unique as the old Yankee Stadium was. Like there's something to the charm of the old place that you can't just bring in the new.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I mean, completely. You have to do it in a tasteful manner, in a way that really pays homage, and not a way that is just like completely upgrading it and shiny penny. Like, especially if you've got fans that have been with you for a long time. That's like Yankees fans. I mean, people live and die Yankees.
Right. And I think it's special too that there's something that only Notre Dame fans would really know. I've never been to Notre Dame Stadium before. I don't think I would have ever recognized the fact that they took the benches and made them signs, having never seen the old stadium. So it's
For
something special
sure.
that is just for those diehard fans to truly appreciate.
Yeah, so, I mean, this goes back to, like, the Disney days too. I mean, there were so many things that we did as a company and in the parks that maybe 1% of customers or guests would recognize. I mean, one of my favorite parts is, so, like, you walk down Magic Kingdom, and tell me if you know what I'm talking about. So you walk down Main Street, USA, Magic Kingdom,
Mhm.
you take a right, so you're still on Main Street, and there's like this little alcove like to the right, and there's like this little
Yep.
alleyway, and it's like one of the quietest areas in the park, and it is strategically right there where the parade often comes through, and people can get overwhelmed. So it's almost like a little safe haven to get away from that. But as you go into the far end of the street and it's quiet, you can see you've got all the signs up of the like the fake businesses up top on the windows, and one of the
Yeah.
signs says like ballet lessons, or ballet lessons or singing lessons. I'm trying to remember what it was, but the window is half open and you can hear like somebody practicing singing and somebody like dancing in the studio. And I'm like, dude, the amount of people that would even know that this alleyway is here is very
Right.
little, let alone the people that would actually notice the music coming softly or the voice singing coming through the window of that. But I think there's something to be said, to your point around Notre Dame, Yankee Stadium, about doing things so that only 1% of the fans recognize it, but that 1% that recognize it are going to say, that is pretty cool. Like they did that for
That's a
me.
better example than I always love the trash can example of how far apart trash cans are spaced in the park because of the fact that Walt Disney, legend has it, Walt Disney himself sat there to calculate how long fans, guests would hold on to their trash. And so it was 9.5 feet. So if you go 9.5 feet in either direction, you will find a trash can. So they're 19 feet apart,
Yeah, the
which is such a
number.
random number, but like 19 feet because Walt Disney figured that out.
And the number changes like depending on who you talk to. So if you're listening to this and
Right.
like you've heard different numbers, like the number, even for us as facilitators at Disney Institute, it vacillated between like 28, 26, or whatever, 19, whatever it was. But yeah, I mean that's like a little process detail to help things be clean. But yeah, I think doing the little details really end up, if you can add up little details throughout the experience, it'll give you that big wow once in a lifetime experience for sure. Um,
Absolutely. I always think too of going to a Sporting KC event. And for those who are
mm,
not familiar with Sporting KC, the park that they play in is Children's Mercy Park, named with the hospital in Kansas City. And so they have something that's called the Victory Suite. And so every single game, they invite someone who is currently receiving treatment at Children's Mercy Hospital to come in and be in the Victory Suite. And they have an entire part of their pregame show where the entire fan supporter group turns and does a choreographed cheer towards the person who is being recognized that game. That is just one of the coolest moments that I have ever witnessed being at a sporting event.
if you want to go see an underrated customer experience, Sporting KC is a great spot to go. I mean,
It was
they really,
incredible.
they've done a lot of really cool things. Do you remember other cool things from your time there? I mean, obviously, like that specific fan like engagement type situation is awesome. Um, but like, what do you remember other things that they did really well there?
I do remember, like, their whole pregame show. I was paying attention to a lot of that. I mean, this was a random Saturday night in
Yeah.
May, So not a big game at all, but they had a hype man that was introducing the starting lineup. And so we were, field side watching the starting lineups and the fireworks and everything. And this guy is so fired up. He's jumping up and down as he is announcing the starting lineup. Like I've just never seen anyone that enthused to announce the starting lineup, but it just set the whole atmosphere for the entire game.
Well,
And you could tell how much the supporters were feeding off of that energy.
well, it's just again, this is the point of the episode, right? Of like making how do you make it feel like it's a once in a lifetime experience? What are the lessons we can glean from a once in a lifetime experience? And for you, that was probably the once in a lifetime that you'll go to a Sporting KC game. So you got one
Right.
shot to make an impact, and now you're on a podcast talking about it, right? So like that is the
Exactly.
thing is like how do we create processes? How do we set things up, create these little magical moments that we can make it feel like a once in a lifetime experience? The the Sporting KC guys are great. Cliff Illig and the whole Illig family are the owners, the big Disney people. I worked with them a
Nice.
bunch when I was at Disney Institute, taking them on some different tours behind the scenes, pointing different stuff out. And if you go and do a tour behind the scenes at Sporting KC Stadium, they built it like the Utilidor at Magic Kingdom, where they have like all the connecting hallways that people can pop up in different areas. So
That's awesome.
they're it's pretty funny. Like it is cool where you start to see like that Disney influence in a bunch of different places. Um, let's think. Other things for me. I mean, for me, college
I
football
was gonna say
playoff.
you always say like you got like the Frankenstein of different pieces that build the ultimate sporting event for you.
For me, like premium area, like I mean, we've been talking a lot about things that impact Joe Fan. For me, premium areas, Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in Atlanta. We went there for college football playoff. I was there for Atlanta United game. I've been there a few different times. I was there for like the first time they went digital, or not digital. First time they went completely cashless. I think it was the first time a venue had ever gone completely cashless with all the reverse ATMs and whatnot. Um, from a premium perspective, they crush it. Like you go to the premium section that's sponsored by Mercedes, and they've got like the real Mercedes, like the newest Mercedes in there that you can like sit in and do all that stuff. I mean, it is really cool, and
Unbelievable.
they did it. They do it well. Like their premium food is premium food. You're like, wow, I should be paying a lot of money for this food. Now, if you're in the premium section and you're paying for that ticket and you're not getting it gifted, like it was for me, you probably are paying premium prices for that. But like they charge for a premium experience, and you walk out and it's like a field suite, a field bunker suite, right? But they did such a good job of just integrating technology into that experience as well, not making it feel forced, where the technology was really used to elevate the experience and not used for technology's sake. And I think that's an important thing. And as we start to get into this world where everybody's making NFTs and we're in Web3 and all that, it's like, let's think about what the technology can help us do. Let's not just put in technology for technology's sake. And I think Mercedes-Benz does a really good job of that, where they're using it to enhance the experience. They're not just putting cool technology out there just to put cool technology out there.
Love
Uh,
that. But I also love the fact that as great as their premium experiences are, they haven't forgotten about the casual fan, the Joe fan, that
yeah.
you've got the friendly pricing that they have there. They've got a lot of things that they thought about all the different segments of their audience.
Yeah, but that's interesting too. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but everybody around the country tried to copy them when they did their fan
Mhm.
first pricing. And actually, so the guy, speaking of Disney influence, the guy that designed all that customer experience from the jump, he's no longer with them. He was a Disney guy, one of our former Disney guys from Parks and Resorts down in Orlando, jumped out, helped them design their whole customer experience, design this kind of fans first pricing. Um, and everybody tried to copy them, but like people don't realize that if you're going to go fans first pricing, I think people have started to realize it now, obviously, but if you're going to go fans first pricing, you have to have the amount of point of sales to accommodate the volume increase.
Yes.
Like you can't, they make up their money because they're selling more volume, they're selling more quantity. You can't sell more quantity if you don't have more points of sale. And right now, everybody's hurting
Mhm.
from points of sales, not only from old infrastructure, but from not even having staff to be able to like put in and solve for the point of sales that they do have. We saw that all this year. So it's like, don't even think about going fans first pricing unless you've got the infrastructure to support it. That's my 2 cents on that.
Right.
But yeah, super cool that they are able to do that at their venue.
Because that's the thing for me as I look at it. If I was not in this role, there would be a lot of sporting events that I would not get to go to, just because of the financial impact and all that kind of thing. And so I always look at, like, what are you doing for the fan that the family of four that wants to come to a Saturday football game? Can you make it so that it doesn't break the bank and this isn't like a Disney trip that they have to save up for years to be able to afford this one game to come to? How are you making things easier for that person to be able to come to the game?
Yeah. And like, I mean, again, going back to that experience for the Joe fan there, I mean, like you order food there, even the sandwiches, and like they're so beautifully decorated and they come out and they're big. But again, key thing here at the stadium, being able to do that, they have more than 7 events in a year, right? Their
Mhm.
MLS team plays out of that venue. They're doing concerts out of that venue nonstop. So like they're able to invest in more infrastructure because they've said, you know what, we don't have the ego where only the Falcons are going to play here, right? We're going to open it up for other things, and we're going to allow ourselves to be able to invest in better infrastructure because we're going to have more events. So we'll have more revenue coming in. So we're not just going to bleed and hemorrhage cash, and we can afford to do some of these upgrades. And so like, that's the thing too. If like you're only going to throw 7 events a year at your venue, like you're going to lose so much money if you try to compete with these guys. Like, so
Right.
the solution to me is like, start thinking about how can we throw more once in a lifetime experiences, right? Like, what are the other
Yes.
ways that we can do that instead of just football games 7 days a year? Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
and I love
now I'm
the
ranting.
way that it goes back to the podcast that we had with Nick Sautner from Eden Park in New Zealand. Is how do you treat your stadium more like a community center, and what other things can you bring into that venue so that you can offset some of these things, and it's not just that you're using your football stadium for 7 Saturdays. I mean, he talked about how many times that they used their parking lot for something, or they used a portion of the concourse for something. How can you break your stadium up or your property up into spaces that the rest of your community can use to offset some of those costs?
That paradox though is interesting because we're talking about once in a lifetime experiences, but in the same vein, we're also talking about how do you make your venue multi-use and a community center, right? So
Right.
I mean, to me, that's where it goes into doing little things like printing the commemorative tickets, right? It goes into the little things like the different traditions of, hey, when you're at this type of game, these are the traditions that happen. Like those things don't
Hmm.
happen. Those things don't happen every day at these other events, but they happen, only when you go to this type of event. Um, so there's definitely ways to do it, but again, all this just comes down to like you just got to be really intentional about planning all the little details, and the little details add up to big wow, and that's what kind of makes this once in a lifetime experience. So that's I think that's all I've got
Exactly.
on the topic.
The devil is in the details.
I know I mean we could go forever, but I know we wanted to make this a quick episode. So you got anything else?
That
Solid.
covers all my points.
Let's wrap it. Let's go get after it. Go Bengals, and to everybody watching, if you're throwing an event this week, try to make it once in a lifetime. It might be for somebody.